Perfect. So, good evening, distinguished leaders, uh, guests, and educators from across the country. Thank you for joining us for this very, very special session, which we are trying to do for the first time. And as I was mentioning earlier, that if we make any error in our understanding of it, I'm sure you'll be kind enough to forgive us. But having said this, I have two very distinguished guests, which I will quickly introduce to both all of you so that we get to know them better while they are very, very regular on IPN. But I will do the needful, quickly introduce them, after which I will take couple of minutes, in fact, for 4 5 minutes maybe, to give you certain statistics or the key budget points in one chronological order. So if you feel you want to make it as a record or you want to put it down on your something, you can do that because I took some time to do that. And then we will get into a Q&A mode, which is that we'll ask a couple of questions to both our panelists. And after that, we will open up the house for discussion. So I'll begin with Dr. Neha Sharma's introduction. She, in fact, has joined into a new role very, very recently. So congratulations to her. And she has been, in fact, joined as a principal of Apeejay School in Noida. And Apeejay is a very, very distinguished group with a pedigree of work in school education as well, while it's a very diversified conglomerate, which is into hotels, etc., etc., a lot of other things. So if you've ever been in Delhi and if you've been to a Park Hotel belongs to the Apeejay Group family, right? Is that what it is? It does, right? Good. So, a visionary leader in the field of education, Dr. Neha Sharma brings a wealth of experience spanning nearly 2 decades in academic administration, school leadership, and policy development. Currently serving as a principal of Apeejay School, Noida, as I mentioned, she has been at the forefront of driving excellence in education, fostering student engagement, and implementing innovative pedagogical strategies. Prior to this, Dr. Sharma has held esteemed leadership roles, including principal at the GD Goenka Public School, Ghaziabad, DPS Gwalior, which is Delhi Public School, Gwalior. Her extensive experience also includes key positions at CBSE, where she served as the Deputy Secretary and head of the Centers of Excellence COE in Delhi and Panchkula, overseeing training and quality management initiatives that have significantly contributed to the educational reform in India. With a strong foundation in instructional leadership, strategic planning, and capacity building, Dr. Sharma has been instrumental in enhancing student retention, faculty development, and regulatory compliance across institutions. Her tenure as Deputy Director of Exams and Reform at CBSE and Assistant Director General at the National Skill Development Agency underscores her commitment to shaping future-ready education systems. Beyond her administrative expertise, Dr. Sharma is a passionate advocate for life skills education, conflict resolution, and leadership training. Her ability to blend academic rigor with holistic student development makes her a distinguished voice in the educational landscape. Welcome, Dr. Neha. Good to have you with us, and we will look forward to listening to you.
Thank you, Gaurav, for such a detailed introduction. I think you have increased my responsibility many folds.
Thank you very much. Yes, and with which we go to our next guest, which is Dr. Chandra. Dr. Chandra, again, is a very, very distinguished leader. I have a very brief introduction of his as well. I will quickly read out. Dr. Chandrashekar, lovingly called as CSK, an esteemed TEDx speaker and an educator who has inspired over 50,000 individuals across 4 continents. Ranked in the top 1% of India's leading professional speakers, Dr. CSK has spent the last 22 years at the intersection of education and entrepreneurship, building thriving ecosystems. He had coached over 63 business leaders and entrepreneurs, delivering invaluable insights on business growth, impact, and balance. An alumnus of IIM Lucknow and a PhD holder from the University of Milan, Dr. CSK was recognized as a Times 40 Under 40 Game Changer in 2020. Currently, he serves as the CEO of JGI Schools India, which is Jain Group of Institutions Schools in India. Welcome, Dr. Chandra. Good to have you as well. And I thought both of you will be fairly equipped to help us understand this better. So here we are. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Okay. So as I had mentioned, before we go into a quick Q&A, I have these statistics quickly, which I will just share with all of you. So people who may have not really taken note of what budget really, because it's just a very, very recent thing. It's been a 7-day sort of a thing, right? So I'm sure few of you might have missed out. And these are all numbers only pertaining to school education or education at large. So this will be very, very directly related to you. So as far as budget goes, we all understand budget is about usually allocating a certain amount of money. It's one of the way we uh, do the what we call the financing of our institutions in our country. So the total allocation for this year's budget has for education, which is 1,28,654.50 crores, in fact, right? 128,650 crore. This is the overall expected allocation for education. Now, this is 6.22% above the last year's budget's allocation, number one. So this is an important piece of information. As I said, just for getting your numbers right, I'm sharing all these data points with all of you. Within which, when we bifurcate this into school education and higher education, the Department of School Education and Literacy takes the majority of this budget, which means of the 1,28,650, 78,572 goes to the Department of School Education and Literacy only, of the 1,28,000 crores, what I meant. 78,572 goes to the Department of School Education and Literacy, and the balance, which is around 50,000 crore, goes to the higher education in our country. Of this, since we may be familiar with this term, I'm sure, Samagra Shiksha has taken an upswing of 4,240 crores. There is an additional amount of 4,240 crores being allocated for the purpose of Samagra Shiksha within the Department of School Education and Literacy. PM Poshan has been given an increase by 25, which is 2,500 crore rupees. PM Shri schools have been increased by 3,000 crores. There's an additional amount. I mean to say, whatever their base amount was, on those, PM Poshan has gotten 2,500 more, and PM Shri has gotten 3,000 crore more. 50,000 Atal Tinkering Labs in government schools will be set up. This is again, I think this is the news piece which took majority of the attention because that's a major number. And I think Atal Tinkering Labs have been around for a while, I believe. They have already been established, but they have now been taken up at a very serious level, at a very big level. And 50,000 is a very substantive number in terms of what government intends to do with technology and its integration at the school. As I was mentioning to you, just for your benefit, while you know what is the balance amount, but the exact amount for higher education is 50,078 crore. That's the allocation for HE, which is higher education, will take this much off. 5 national centers of excellence in skilling have to be created. This is again emphasizing on the skilling aspect, which is reflected even on NEP. The government has come out very, very strongly, and government intends to open up 5 national centers of excellence in skilling. And as we are aware of, if you're not, there is one center of excellence for AI in education with an investment of 500 crores will be also set up in the country. The investments, single investment of 500 crores, it's only for the AI in Education Center of Excellence by the government. Another important data point, which I thought got everyone's attention as well, there is a 20,000 crore allocated to support private sector research and innovation, which is in fact part of ANRF, which is Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which is a government entity which works on the research and development. But now with this additional investment, there will be even private entities which will get participation to these kind of research and development, which possibly were earlier not taken care of. Last but couple of more points with which I will be handing it over to my guest, which is Bhartiya Bhasha Pustak Scheme. This is about, again, emphasis on languages, bringing forth all our languages in digital form, in fact, to the larger masses is what the effort of government, which they are trying to put it under a basket of Bhartiya Bhasha Pustak Scheme, basically. There is another mission, which is called the Gyan Bharat Mission, which is about, in fact, taking care of the Indian manuscripts, basically. All those Indian repository will be put under Gyan Bharatam Mission, basically. This is what the name is. And this is again an initiative which this budget has brought in. And we will be seeing Indian manuscripts specifically being digitized and kept under this particular mission. Last one, which is again, I think it's already been done, or maybe we have already heard this about in NEP, but this is now going to see the light of the day, is called the National Digital Repository of Indian Knowledge Systems. This is again something which I believe we had the prerequisite, or I think there were some building blocks already, but now this will be in a very massive way bringing forth to the implementation part, in fact. So this is what the key numbers, if I may say, were about education in per se. There may be many data points, but I thought for the benefit of all of us, these data points will hold relevance. And this will also become a basis of our today's discussion. We may be able to cover a few points from these, as in the points which we have shared as the data points, in fact. So I will begin with my first question to both of you, my dear guests, which is either one of you can go and take the lead, which is very topical as well, AI, and I'm sure while this was in the public domain, so much is already happening. We now hear about the DeepSeek thing as well, which is China's sort of a reply to Open AI or the Chat GPT, right? So I think it was only about to happen that India will take its own position for that matter, and it's pure timing, if I may say. Budget was so timed that it came on the first. Every year comes on the 1st of Feb, right? So, but my question is a little different. My question is, we understand we have got an allocation which is about 500 crores, but again, how much of it is really going to be spent eventually? Because if you understand, budget is a very interesting conundrum. Budget is about allocation, but how much eventually gets spent is a real deal, which is after 1 year we'll get to know. But let's start on a positive note, assuming that this is the right step in the right direction. What are your thoughts when you see AI being given that space, which obviously it deserves, but how will school education or our educators should possibly take this as a news for them example, right? Either of you can begin. Take this up.
Ma'am, do you want to take it up? Yeah.
I was about to ask you the same. Would you like to go in first? So maybe you can do it.
Okay. I was trying to ensure that the ladies go first.
So I think we have to balance the idea of chivalry now.
All right. So good evening to all of you. And first of all, Gaurava, fantastic initiative as always. And I think IPN now has the credit of leading the change right from the beginning in terms of even exploring unexplored territories. Because this is, I think, for the first time in my experience that I'm attending a education-centric webinar, but discussing something not related directly to education, but a macro topic like budget. So that being said, let me dive directly into this particular piece. And I think, again, thanks for a little crash course in budget highlights for all of us. 5 minutes. It kind of set the context as well. At the same time, brought us up to pace with respect to what is in store for us as far as the year is going to unfold. Now, coming to the 500 crore number, right? I will answer this at two levels. Number one, you did raise a red flag by saying, that's only allotted budget. Are we even going to spend it or not? Is something the time will tell. Yes, absolutely right. But I'm an optimist by nature. And I believe that the very fact that the government who kind of sets the agenda at the macro level, both nationally and globally, is signaling to the world largely that we are ready to even allocate a handsome number like 500 crores to this emerging sector like AI. See, let's also understand the ground reality. While we speak and celebrate AI, many of us do not understand the complete context in which AI is to be spoken, right? For a lot of us, including me, we think ChatGPT or the generative AI platforms, like, for example, OpenAI or the DeepSeek or the Ola funded AI, which is Bharat AI, which is getting up, all of these are for us the versions and the avatars of AI. While in reality, AI is maybe as old as 65-year-old in terms of a scientific concept of artificial intelligence, right? Without getting technical, the fact remains that I'm very happy that the government has actually taken the first step forward in allotting a center of excellence in AI. And that too, if I have to read the complete line, it is center of excellence for AI in education. So that's a great thing because, as Dr. Kalam rightly said, the future of the country resides in the classroom. So that's the important thing. So future focused budget, one thing. Now coming to the next part, that how do we see this? What do we have to make out of it and infer out of this 500 CR allocation is broadly. First thing is, it is going to, first of all, if not anything, give us a report card of our digital infrastructure in the country. Why do I say this? See, remember, you take a step back and go back to the Atal Tinkering Labs. When ATLs were opened up for private institutions, many of us kind of got an assessment of where we stand and are we even eligible to apply for it. And it was still deemed a great privilege if out of the so many schools who apply, if our school got the final Atal Tinkering Lab to implement. It is not that a 20 lakh fund is a huge amount for a private school. It is not about that perspective. It is a prestigious perspective of having an ATL lab in your school. Now, with that same context, if you look at the assessing the and upgrading the digital infrastructure, the 500 crore AI Center of Excellence is going to give us that push where each one of us in government sector as well as in private sector can look at assessing this from the connectivity piece, the hardware piece, the software platforms, and a lot of other things. So it's creating the ground ready. Like when you want to do cultivation, you first settle the ground. You first see that if the soil is perfectly right and ready for sowing the seeds. So that's the first thing which I want to bring notice to. Second is, what this will do is AI is going to be the language in the corridors and classrooms and of the institution. So integrating AI, whatever little we understand of AI, at least that will happen at a mass level. Because when NEP came up and NEP gave a grand view of future education, many of the private schools, including ours, said at the beginning saying that, oh, this is all we are doing already. I mean, bagless classes are happening, burden-free education is there, language teaching is already there, art integration is already happening. That's one perspective to look at life. That I know it all, I am doing it already, and that's no new thing for me. But the other perspective is, look at the conversations in the government schools. Look at the conversations in Zilla Parishad schools. People started experimenting with bagless days. People started experimenting with, can my school student not study from the board, but can he get an expert into the class like a local artisan or a painter, and he can share experiences. A potter with the wheel inside the Zilla Parishad school was a big news in some of the newspapers, but NEP ensured that. So coming back, this is going to ensure that AI gets integrated into the school system. I think that's the second point. Last point, so that Dr. Neha can take over from here, is it is also going to ensure or foster a lot of public private partnerships. Because, see, let's understand, we live in a country which is democratic, but at the same time, it's not one size fits all. Some of the institutions will take up, they're not going to wait for the fund to come, they're not going to do something, but they'll start the replication model. Okay, what is the center of excellence with 500 crore budget allocation trying to convey? And if I have access to resources, if I have access to funds, I will start doing it. I will not wait for somebody to give me the fund, but that will help me to partner with other private institutions. So in the higher education, the AICTEs of the world and the UGCs always talk about, why don't we have an industry academia interface? So the COE, the Center of Excellence with AI, is going to ensure schools having interface with multinational companies so that they can create their own center of excellence inside the school with AI being the subject of discussion. I think these are the things which I am seeing which are going to happen in the immediate future. And of course, a center will take its time to establish. We don't even know where are they going to set it up, or is it going to be a virtual center where it is going to exist everywhere across the country, but nowhere in physical form. And then all institutions can connect to them again through the web, or what is the format, we don't know. What are the programs they are going to run out? Because schools and education have many stakeholders. You have faculty, you have management or administrators, you have students, you also have a lot of other ancillary people who are connected, like edtech vendors and others. So are they allocating fund to all of them, or they are going to focus only on one particular stakeholder? It is wait and watch. But that being said, this is a great move and I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, very, very, I think, comprehensively, you put out how AI is going to be, I would say, a very normalizing factor. I think we should very, very quickly, amidst the corridors of our schools, in fact, start to normalize this conversation. And I think one of the major offshoot of this announcement with government putting it into budget is that this will become a common discussion point. And I think that is what the larger view, what you're saying is, and in fact, that's a larger goal with the budget is. And while there are finer points will have to come, there are a lot of finer points which has to come as to when and where exactly. I mean, in fact, those are my couple of questions with the Honorable, in fact, Education Minister, which we can actually pose is that considering the size of our country, we have 770 districts in our country. So how will these allocations go? I mean, are they going to go district wise or what, etc., etc.? But I think that the good point is that it's a good start. At least public's imagination is being taken care of. People will not start discussing about it. Educator will start discussing about it. And if India has to stay ahead in the AI, if I may say, it's not a really race, but competitive sort of a landscape, this is a very, very important step, I think. Wonderful. Over to you, Dr. Neha. We'd love to hear from
Okay.
you, and then we'll
So
go to the next.
maybe, thank you, Gaurav and Dr. Chandra, very well put. I think definitely it is also about normalizing the whole idea of AI. Now, my question to myself and maybe to everyone else who's attending this session is that what exactly this center of excellence will be kind of focusing on? Will it be focusing on AI in education? Will it be focusing on AI for education, or will it be focusing on AI as education? So again, in every aspect, so if we talk about AI in education, I think it is something we have to understand that we are a huge demography, and we also have still been struggling with the idea that we have not reached the last child. We have not been able to identify the learning gaps and support the child who really, really deserves to learn in this whole setup when we talk about Samagri Shiksha, as Gaurav mentioned initially. So will we be able to somehow help that last child learn better with the help of AI, identifying the learning gaps and maybe, creating something which helps that child do better? Or we need India to be the feeder to the world in terms of those who are creating, those applications and working in the domain of AI as software engineers, as, people who are working on data which is being generated and things like that. Or we are focusing on AI being something which we are using to kind of, feed ourselves with information and educate ourselves better, like, the way we are using generative AI these days. So how, in which area, in which format are we going to get support from these center of excellences is something that I've been thinking ever since I thought that the discussion should be around this. Then also, as you said about making it a common discussion talking point across the corridor, I'll share something. So while having this coffee morning with parents, I had to face a question from a parent wherein she was literally, livid about the whole idea that we are not doing AI from grade one. And why are we not doing it? Why are we depriving her child from, boarding a rocket which is going to take her to maybe some next level? And I tried my best to tell her that, ma'am, in foundational years, we have to create that base, and later, definitely, we are introducing it. We are definitely bringing it in. But maybe every child is not as smart as your kid to understand how to kind of, understand the entire concept of AI. But I still remember her face, and I know I was not able to convince her that why we are not doing it in the foundational year itself. So when this becomes a big buzzword, I'm sure we'll have to be ready for our answers when the parents come and ask that, okay, government is doing all these things for AI. What are you doing at school? So that is there. Now, if we talk about larger context, so definitely it is commendable, and but the struggle is, the concern is that will it be able to reach to all 770 districts and to the remotest village of India? I think that is something we have to understand. And also, are we having teachers, and if we talk about school, who are equipped enough to understand this whole idea of AI and take it forward to this generation who is having multiple source and maybe AI backed sources also to learn? Definitely, we can say that when we talk about India, we have been successfully been able to bring in this whole idea of digital India, and we are, I think, one country wherein everyone across the ladder, socio-economic ladder, is able to use digital, devices and data and things like that. So for sure, generative AI as a thing, we can see in our responses are the letters that we are receiving from parents, from teachers, from everyone around are becoming better in terms of language, all courtesy to ChatGPT. But at the same time, is that all? Is that all that AI will mean to us? Will it be like only Google of language and grammar? Or is it something more that we have to expect and explore in terms of AI? Yes, we can definitely say that AI-driven education will help us improve the learning outcomes, and we'll be able to personalize learning, adapt it to students' need, and provide real-time feedback. So this is what I'm looking forward to when I talk about AI in education, or about this whole idea of center of excellence, is that at least it will help me support the child better and do whatever I think that I should be doing as a school for the child in a more holistic manner. So that is all that I would like to say about this.
No, no, I think you raised some valid questions, and these are, I think, questions which I believe every educators should be asking. In fact, not only yourself or to us. In fact, we will actually should be asking this to the right competent authorities as well. And that is the idea of this discussion, to normalize this conversation also. Without taking names, Dr. Chandra and Dr. Neha, I spoke to a few leaders, and the very initial response they get, see, how does it matter? It doesn't really have anything to do with me. I mean, because private institutions have no sort of a person. I said, I mean, while I understand your reservation on it, but so what my initial thought was that because we were also doing it for the first time, I had my own set of apprehensions that why should I even do this? Does this conversation lead to any kind of change, etc.? Then I realized was that sometimes you don't have to do things for only change, right? Sometimes it's for information, just to make somebody a better informed individual about, right? Because this may help you take a better decision maybe sometime in your own course of life. So answering your question, so Sam Altman is right now in India, by the way. So he was meeting the Honorable Minister, in fact, Vaishnav ji. And let me tell you where we as a country stand, because I have been reading this space, following this space, and for the benefit of all. So India right now is purely the user of AI. We want to start developing these large language models at our end, basically. That is the government push on it, basically. The deep tech part of all our investment, even if in the budget, if you look, there's actually a portion devoted to deep tech investment, basically, which is purely hardcore-ish research in development on the technology side, basically. But what India is trying to go and take expertise of OpenAI, which is the company which is really pioneering this, along with other countries, is that from the deeper or at a ground up level, which is from our schools example, and schools will more or less be about educating our kids, basically, right? To be an innovator example. So you may find somebody, so even if you look at this DeepSeek, the founder of DeepSeek is 24-year-old. You may say he's a kid, and he started developing when he was actually in school. So that kind of innovation needs to come, and that is where I think government wanted to catch everyone's imagination, that you should not be thinking about AI once you are out of school, example. You may not say that, okay, when I'm in college, I'm going to do AI. That's not the way it will work. It should actually happen right now. And I think what you told, and I was sharing this with Dr. Chandra very recently, that it's fairly late when you start talking about AI in the 6th, 7th, 8th, or a 9th grade. Today, a student of prep, or even at one standard, example, in your case, what you said, is the one who needs intervention on AI, actually. That's the right kind of spot. When I say this, age appropriateness in place. I mean, please understand this. We imply that is a understood part of it. How we will do it is something which is out for all of us to discuss and deliberate on. But that is the first part of our question. We'll quickly go to our next part, which is around skilling, because I think skill is something which is, I think, one of the key points within the education domain, which the government has really put their, I would say, mind on. And 5 National Center of Excellence, again, where will they come up? How will they shape up? That's a complete different story altogether. But the fact remains that the government is investing on creating these skill centers. But my question is a little different. While schools are already addressing this skill thing in their own capacity, NEP talks about so strongly on the skill part of it. We are gearing up for it, right? But I think one point which I really liked about what Dr. Chandra said was that there was one part of us, which is private institutions, which were doing their bit. But there was this entire 66% of our enrollments in our schooling system comes from the government setup, basically. 66% overall student enrolled in the Indian schooling system are with the government, which has gone down, by the way. It has gone down from 72% earlier. 66 is the latest update. And the remaining obviously remains with the private institution. So I think what Dr. Chandra said, and what I truly believed in, is this will unlock the value of truly what I call the latent potential which lies with the public sector in schools of our country, where somebody who was struggling to get the act together, as in going to the school or having a teacher in the classroom, they will also try to come at the same pace. While at the same time, you raised concern, Dr. Neha, with respect to uh, how much of an access do we still have in our country, because universal access to education still remains to be, I think, a dream which we have to still capture, if I may say. So those are questions which are unanswered. But having said this, if we talk about just private institutions, where do you think and how far have we come with respect to this entire skill in schools or skill education in our country, right? We've been talking about it for now past 5 years since NEP has come into vogue, right? So I want a very realistic assessment. Both of you work, in fact, I know Dr. Neha works very closely with CBSE. She will be very diplomatic in her approach, but we will love to hear from her something which we do not know about. Chaliye, bataiye. This time Dr. Neha will take the lead.
Okay.
I will save Dr. Chandra.
Okay, so okay, I'll go on first for this.
Yes.
So, when we talk about skilling, when you were talking about my introduction, you said that I've worked with NSGA, which stands for National Skill Development Agency, which is now subsumed in NSVT, NSVET, right? So now when I was part of that organization, it was purely about skilling. It was under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. When I went there, I realized that having spent so many years in the domain of education, I'm still absolutely oblivious of what is happening when it comes to skilling domain. And it was quite of an eye opener. One thing that I would like to suggest and share with everyone, that there's an Olympics of skills that happens globally, which is known as world skills. Now, can we even imagine the kind of things that are there the children across globe come and compete for? No, we can't even imagine. They compete for things like bricklaying. Please just excuse me for a second. I think I missed putting it on mute. So yes, so there are competition for things like bricklaying, painting a car, I mean, beauty courses, cookery, bakery, all these things we are aware of. But plastering a wall, and people are competing, kids across globe are competing for it. And when I went to the automobile area, I asked someone that why are we kind of, why are they getting trained and skilled in this particular thing just for painting a car? The person asked me that will you be comfortable if you own a Jaguar or a Mercedes or a BMW? Will you take that to the, neighborhood mechanic to do the denting and painting? No. You'll take it to somebody who is highly skilled in doing this. So, yes, this domain is still hugely unexplored. And because we are so fascinated with this whole idea of physics, chemistry, maths, history, civics, geography, economics, BST, and all, we don't think that there's a huge world beyond this, which we can maybe at least suggest parents and children to explore. So when we talk about some statistics and data, Economic Forum in 2003 said that 54% of employees will require reskilling by 2025 due to automation and digital transformation. This data I'm sharing because we were just discussing about AI. So we have to, when we talk about skilling is not as static as the degrees that we usually earn. It is something where you have to keep reskilling and upskilling yourself if you want to stay in vogue. But when we talk about vocational education in India, though Gaurav rightly said that I'll be diplomatic, but when I'm not talking about CBSE, I can still be frank. So now in India, when we talk about vocational education, there is an increased demand, and NSGC, which is kind of more or less supporting this entire ecosystem, says that 25% year over year, increased enrollment can be seen in various skill development courses. But at the same time, despite all the push that is being done, the centers that we are talking about, how many of us are aware that we have lots of skill universities, and there's one kind of a state skill university almost there in every state, which is like hugely and very interestingly equipped to train children into various things. But we are never discussing about these skill universities in our career programs. So even if there's a huge push, it is only 2% of India's workforce which is formally enrolled in skill development programs, as compared to 68% in advanced economies, so to say. Again, coming back to this world skill, when I went there, we had a huge contingent, but what we got was only bronze medals and, more like an appreciation certificate, not even silver. I think we got one silver and no gold at all. At the same time, China, Taiwan, they actually swept the entire thing, and they had almost everything that was happening. They took the medals with them. So what is it that they are doing right and we are missing out on? And why can't we do it right if we have that support from government, if we had that support from system? So I think we also have to, as educators, start thinking a little bit more about skilling. CBSE definitely offers lots of skill subjects, but we offer them, and when we withdraw them, saying that there were no takers. So maybe we'll have to push parents and students a little more to take up skill courses, and the real skill courses, not just computers and AI. So that's all I would like to say.
I think very well said. In fact, you've given some very interesting statistic, which actually is very, very, I think, glaring, if I may say, which we have to work on as a nation. Certainly, 2% is very, very dismal. I would say that. But before we deliberate this further, Dr. Chandra, over to you. And in fact, then we will take the last 15 minutes for our Q&A, because I think we are already short on time, right? Go ahead, Dr. Chandra, please.
All right. I think that is very well said by Dr. Neha. And yes, there is still a lot of things to be done as far as skilling. But skilling happens to be my favorite area of interest. And I will jump straight into a few things. If I remember the question right, and just to paraphrase the question in my own words, what is the impact this entire National Skill Excellence Institute, as well as the whole Skill India in the budget, is going to create for the next year or so? Now, that being the question which I am trying to answer, I will go in three or four points. Number one is, when it comes to the budget's focus on the skill initiative. Now, we don't have to debate on the importance and significance of skilling. I think everybody understands that. But the first thing is, I'm seeing a more focused shift towards competency based learning. Because the minute you put skill at the center of the equation, what happens is people will start looking at, how do I attack the equation and master the equation, which means I need to look at my competencies enhanced. Now, that means we are talking at a very ground zero level. We are talking about a future ready model which involves learning robotics, learning some other areas like what ma'am was talking about, painting, plastering. Look at it as a skill development rather than, okay, I am looking at it as an ancillary to my main physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. So the shift is towards competency building and development. So that's the thing. The direct impact is, it will enhance the 21st century skills of the students, because you will start looking at problem solving, you will start looking at critical thinking. In fact, interestingly, what do we understand by critical thinking is one question which I was a part of at the US consulate recently. And it all boiled down to, you may answer it with any flowery language you want, but it all boiled down to one thing. Critical thinking is about the ability to ask questions. Can we ask questions and not take answer on its face value? Right? So that's the thing. So it will start the conversation in that zone. Second, I think Dr. Neha already touched upon it, but I will still elaborate on it a little, is the integration of vocational and technical education will happen at a much more robust manner. Because once you provide the impetus on skilling, then the vocational education, the technical education, because see, if you are saying, okay, pottery is a vocation, I'm going to learn pottery, but there is also technicality to pottery, right? Painting is a vocation. I will learn painting, but there is a technicality of putting a primer, putting the leveling the wall. So there is a technical things, even automobile engineering, or even understanding different velocities. So there are a lot of other technical related things. So it will bring in that kind of a synergy between these vocational and technical education thanks to skilling. Now, the other important thing which I really, really am excited about is the we talk about education should be lifelong learning, it should be holistic education. So, the focus, if you give on skilling, you are also indirectly but surely giving the focus on reskilling and upskilling. So, that means the fact that it's like this, the fact that you are buying a mobile phone, you are also buying the decision of updating the phone every 2 years or every 3 years. It's one direction where you keep upgrading yourself. It's not a once in a lifetime decision. It's a decision which will make you decide again and again and again every 2 years or every 3 years. So take the same thing for skilling. The minute you look at skilling as a way to make your living or to enhance your standard of living through better salary, better wages, or a better job, you're also telling yourself that, listen, this is going to last for me maybe a year or two, or maybe three if I'm lucky. But at the end of the third year, I need to upskill myself or reskill myself. And there you are enhancing the focus on lifelong learning, or what the Japanese call proudly as kaizen, right? Continuous improvement and continuous progress. So that's the other part. And the last part, which I really want to stress upon, is your evaluation or the assessment, which we take great pride in debating in our schools. And we keep talking about, NEP talks about, is it assessment of learning, or is it assessment for learning, or is it assessment as learning, right? And we also know the good old method that Bloom's taxonomy says, what is not measured has not happened, right? Now, the fact is, skilling will help you do it continuously. So your continuous evaluation is part of the system, and adaptation to that is also part of the system. So imagine a sports teacher coming to you and saying, ma'am, I don't have statistics and report cards to tell you which boy or girl will be part of the school team, which will represent our school in the district level tournament. Because the sports teacher is observing the child, and the child's skills, maybe in scoring the goal or playing that game, as kind of exponentially grown over the last 5 days, and that is after the last unit test, right? So it is continuous evaluation and continuous adaptation. So that is my point in terms of the skill piece. And another important thing which I really want to spend some time about is, maybe if you give me a minute, recently, I don't know how many of us did take a look at this Educational Testing Services Human Progress Report, which just came out. And if you look at that column, I can share this with your IPN network after this, and we can share it with all the members of the IPN forum. But it talks very interesting. It's called as the Human Progress Report Card, and it makes it very interesting for us to understand where India stands vis-a-vis the global average, right? And I'll pick up only 3 or 4 selective items. We spoke about AI and digital literacy at the beginning, so I'll pick up that. If you look at AI and digital literacy, and as a skill needed to be competitive in the job market, India says 33% is something AI and digital literacy is going to make you successful in the job market. And if you look at the belief that upskilling is essential for career growth, India says 91% is there, but the global average is not there. And remember, this entire survey is done across 18 countries, and the respondents are 180,000 people. And there's no global average, but India says 91% people thinks and believes that skilling is the way to career progress. Another important piece I want to talk to you about, we are talking about education and budgets on education, the fact of education optimism. Where do we stand in the whole world when it comes to, are we optimistic about education system? We stand at a 70% ranking, while the global average is only 30%. 30% across
Wow.
the globe doesn't believe that education, I mean, are not optimistic about their education system, but we in India are 70% optimistic. Very interesting. And the
Hmm.
last thing I want to raise about is this particular thing where we score a whooping high percentage, and this is something which we want to talk about, is we in India, again, we are a land of dichotomies. We in India believe that credentials will be more important than degrees, 88% against a global average of 75%, right? So point is, government has to understand that we need to provide them the impetus to grow the whole idea of skilling and other thing, but at the same time, put the leash on certifications, credentials, and other thing, because we are looking at a vast country and it is not easy to manage this kind of a population. So that's my 2 cents on these.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, absolutely yes. The entire concept of micro credentialing has become such a, I would say, important conversation in academic world now. In fact, so at least what I've heard, mostly in the Southeast Asian nation, they've taken it up very, very well. I'm sure it will catch up in India, but I will not get into any further discussion from my end or from our partners, which is we will get into 8 minutes of discussion from all of you. So we will love to hear from our participant leaders that if you have anything apart from what we discussed, or you have a point of view to what we shared with you, we would love to hear from you. Please give us a virtual show of hand. We'll help you unmute and then we can hear it from you. Because as I said, 3 people sharing their views is mostly only 3 people's view, right? I'm sure everyone here has its own point of view, I'm sure, or the way you are looking at it may be completely different the way we are looking at it, example, right? So we would love to hear. Please give us a virtual show of hand. So in the time you organize your thoughts and you raise your hand, I will quickly share that one thing about skill, which I thought I should share with each one of you, is that Singapore specifically is what they're trying to do with skill. Siba Prasad, I'll just come to you. I'll just complete this thought of mine, which is they did a sort of a survey with their teachers, and they realized that majority of their teachers did not even understood what is skill. Everyone had their own definition of skill. And what it was leading into their classroom was a complete commotion. Basically, there is no academic sort of understanding unanimously they were able to arrive at. So everyone thought, so somebody attributed skill being vocational, somebody thought skill being something which they can make a livelihood of, and etc., right? So what their ministry did was they said, all of you, which is teachers in their 40s, 30s, whatever that you volunteer, we'll send you back. And where will we send you? We'll send you to industry to understand what they mean by skill. Because eventually, what do you prepare? What are you preparing these skills for, right? Eventually, these skills needs to be absorbed in the larger canvas of industry at the end of the day, right? So go to this industry, figure out what they need. Go to this industry, figure out what they need. And they have actually made it mandatory now for all the teachers. They will, over a calendar of 1 year, will have to undertake a 7 day, a 14 day, a 21 day training at the corporate, which obviously school will give you all that what you call attendance and everything else, but you will go and train yourself from the horse's mouth, because eventually your definition of this English definition, the academic definition, will not work. I think that's a brilliant idea. We should also think, at least the progressive schools, few of them are already doing, but I think larger canvas should take it up and send out their teachers to such conversation. I believe they will come back far more richer, and their classroom for skills will become very, very different. Siba, your question or an observation. Siba Prasad Tripathi. Yeah.
Good evening to everyone in the seminar. I have one small question regarding, because as we see, with all due respect to the leadership team and the management people sitting over here in this seminar, with all due respect, whatever as a teacher I want to tell you that nowadays, even though we are telling that for the upskilling and all, but there is hardly we are getting, if let's say some seminar we are attending, we are either being called as for the meetings or some workshop or some parent is there, and as a teacher we have to attend it. And from Monday to Saturday we are completely packed with the corrections,
Yeah.
questions, lesson plans and preparation for the next day, for the next very next period. So hardly we have time within the but once the training is over for whatever we have enrolled, then there is hardly any time we get it for to attend that thing, right? I attended this meeting by punching from my school, and then I left, and I have been part of this meeting. So that is one query to the leadership team and the management people over here. Thank
Good
you, sir, for
question.
giving me
I'm
this
happy for
opportunity.
this question. It's a good question. Wonderful.
I think Dr. Chandra wants to answer this. Or should I?
See, I think, I did not register the name of the gentleman.
Siba Prasad Tripathi. Yeah.
Mr. Siba, I think it's a good question, and it's also a pertinent issue at the bottom level or the ground reality of the schools and institutions today. But we'll have to understand it from both perspectives. While we know that attending skilling programs and these kind of knowledge interactions are very important and very necessary, you should also be kind of cognizant of the fact that I'm talking from the management perspective. Allow me to do that from the point of view of, okay, if I keep turning a positive shoulder towards supporting my team to keep attending webinars and sessions and seminars and getting skilled, I should also have to have an answer to this question of how much is too much. And it's not that the quantity will always win the race, because we all know that it is not attending a variety of topics will enhance my ability to become a skilled player. It is going deeper, and again, back to basics. Learning is not just about listening, understanding, but learning is also about reflection, right? So why are you talking about skilling without learning? We need to look at it from that perspective. But at the same time, I will also tell that people like us, the management and the principals and the leaders, should also be cognizant of the fact that if there is a spark in someone to do more and you don't resonate with it, it's okay, but you also have no business to extinguish that spark. Right? That is important. It's not that, how many programs you attend, every time you come to me with a new poster and a new webinar and you want to escape from duty. That is one perspective. Okay, you are so proactive in attending all that. Fine, do it. But how are you going to handle this? Because this is also equally your responsibility. That is another perspective. So I think this is the balance. And world and life runs on the law of averages. We need to average it out at the same time and be very, very careful when we are making those communications, because 90% of the time it is not what is said, but how it is said that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Neha, you want to respond?
I can say that Dr. Chandra has absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
And see, I'll say as a teacher, right? So for me as a teacher, and as we were having this conversation before, that whatever I'm doing today, I'm living in a world which is changing at a very fast pace, and I've got students who are getting smarter day by day. Now, if I want to stay in sync with whatever is happening around me, I'll have to find time out of my 24-hour schedule to take myself to the next level. And this I can do if I very wisely and in a way. So what we have to eliminate is our things that consume our time, which are taking away our time, which are our killers of our productive time. So if we are able to identify those killers and eliminate them, I still feel that we can find time. I'm a principal, and as a principal, you can understand that there are lots of responsibilities which we shoulder besides the routine stuff. But still, we try to take time out because unless I'm a learner myself, I cannot request or ask or maybe motivate other person to learn. So I think we'll have to find our space somewhere for that.
Absolutely. In fact, well said, Manoj. Before I come to you, and I want to really share with all the teachers here and every educator here, please do not go to a session just for getting a certificate. I have seen this as one of the most ridiculous requests which we get. Sir, we attended this webinar of yours. Please give us a certificate. I said, please understand this. For a webinar, there is no point getting a certificate. It is not a training. A training is an organized wherein you have disciplined yourself, scheduled yourself, learned something out, and which you can possibly reproduce, right? So that is one thing which, with, as I said, as a request, because we are going to begin with a new academic season from April. So when you go to a new training, never ever just do it for the certificate, guys. That's a very bad approach of approaching any training. Manoj, your question. Dr. Manoj K.
Good.
Chaudhary. Yeah.
Yes, good evening, good evening, good evening. Actually, Mr. Shiva Prasad has raised a important question, what I feel, because, yeah, skilling is very, very important. Now we realize without upskilling ourselves or the students, it's just impossible to cope up with the days to come. But the thing is, at the end of the session, parents, management, all are after the marks. How much the students have scored in physics, how much the students have scored in chemistry. Okay, they don't talk about skill. This is the main problem, and all teachers are under pressure. The way Shiva Prasad said, all teachers are under pressure. They will have to complete the syllabus, and in their subject, the students will have to score good marks. So unless we change the mindset of the parents and management, so I think the skilling part should be a integral part of evaluation or assessment. There should be continuous evaluation. It should be done formally. Then only I think it will be practical. Otherwise, again, we are going for the marks result of only the academic subject. So this is my view. Actually, we should have a different outlook.
No,
We
I
have to
think
change the
I think that's a good point you make, that there is a completely 360-degree U-turn we take the moment we evaluate somebody, right? And
Yes.
suddenly skill discussion goes for a toss. I completely understand this, but I hand it over to Dr. Chandra and Dr. Neha to respond back. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep it short. Yeah, I think you have a very valid point in terms of we are evaluating. But I believe that even your evaluation of physics, chemistry, mathematics can also be keeping in view the skills the child has developed in sorting and solving that particular problem. How do I talk about? Suppose, for example, you have given a answer any 5 questions out of the 7 options available. Now you can look at carefully, if you read between the lines, as they say, which are the 5 questions a child is using to pick. And what is the rationale behind that 5 questions and not the leftover 2 questions? Because you are able to get a signal from the child without being communicated that there is a very, very inherent preference that the children are taking towards a set of questions and not, whether it is physics or chemistry or biology. Maybe that also talks about that the children's skills in understanding abstract questions is still not there, where you go to the extent of the higher order thinking skills. Because we know when we prepare a question paper, we prepare it with Bloom's taxonomy, we prepare it with your blueprint, and we know that, okay, a class of 25 people, how many people are not answering that question properly or not even attempting it? Then you know where the skill level of the class is. That's one piece. Second, what is stopping us as a school or as a teacher to prepare a holistic report card for my subject? Okay, your school may still want to give the marks on a single sheet and give it to the PTM, but you as a subject teacher, I don't think any principal is going to stop you if you do that extra bit of a holistic report card in a notebook for each class which you handle. You assess the skills, and in a PTM, when it is your turn to talk, why don't you tell your parents that, listen, you may be interested only in marks, but you should also know the other aspects of your child. Like, for example, do you know whether your child has an Instagram account or not? Yes, you will know, because you will put all the parental guardrails. You know parental controls exist in your TV because you don't want the children to watch those channels on Netflix or those episodes and those series. Similarly, you should also know, in addition to what score your child is getting in physics, maths, chemistry, and bio, or even for that matter English, you should also know how child is skilled in, maybe in communication, or in technology, or in teamwork, in working together as a collaborative project, how many projects the child has done over the last term, or these things. So I think, yes, there is still a long way to go, and India is an elephant, and elephant moves slowly, but at the end of the day, elephant also can run, and when it starts running, it is unstoppable, right? So we need to look at it from that perspective. Over to
Definitely, definitely. Yes, definitely
I'll
we'll have
just
to do that. Yes.
I'll just quickly add to what Dr. Chandra said, that, of course, we keep on talking about Bloom's taxonomy, but when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, we are majorly talking only and only about cognitive domain. But we also have to understand that Bloom taxonomy is also in affective domain and in psychomotor domain. And when we are talking about skilling aspect of it, while we were, when I was working with NSGA, and we were, defining the levels of NSQF, when we were talking about which level is one, then next level. And so we were working more on psychomotor domain, because there is a different level, way to evaluate skills. If we are talking about per se the skills that we are discussing here about, definitely there are transversal skills, or the skills which are common across domains, which we also say are the 21st skills, 21st century skills. So those skills will help you excel and be successful in life, if you are able to understand how to kind of improve the soft skills that we are talking about. So they are important, but at the same time, when we talk about this whole skilling aspect, I think we need to explore a little bit more about its evaluation process, because we can't do it in terms of remembering, understanding, application, and so on and so forth. So that's all I would like to.
Perfect. I think we'll take one final question, which is Divya Divedi, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah. It's been a wonderful discussion so far. I think from budget, we have straight gone into the problems of schools now. So before we go deeper into the problems and change the topic of discussion, I think we lost Divya. But having said this, I think...
No. I'm there. Good evening, Dr. Chandra. Good evening, Dr. Sharma. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay, that's great. So much as I empathize with Mr. Shiva and his question, it is a reality that our teachers feel in a certain manner. But that brings me to Mr. Manoj, who did point out a pertinent requirement from the society, which suggests that everyone in the society needs to be aware. And we need a major societal shift from mark obsession to the availability of the vocational curriculum. Which brings me to my point, Dr. Neha, and this question is for you. We, like in schools, majority of the schools are happy to take these vocational subjects up. And for the want of students, and you rightly put it so, many of these subjects are discontinued. Please help us understand how can we help children to embrace these subjects, and this doesn't happen without awareness of parents, because again, at the end of the day, parents with a little bit of knowledge what they have from their time of learning, when there were just those basic subjects of physics, chemistry, biology, and that was it, and career options were also limited. How do we go ahead And the thing with the schools is that we have to definitely look at the economic viability of a subject, because if there is a resource that has to be engaged, they will be adequately paid for us to be able to continue the subject. And if there are no takers for the subject, we will invariably have to discontinue the subject. So this is a catch-22 situation, and schools are unable to help the society. So please help me in this.
So, Divyaji, what I will definitely share here is that we are sailing in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
And having said that, what I feel is maybe we start things little kind of, without a balance somewhere. So if I'll take the word which Dr. Chandra used, which is focus. Of course, he used it in term of trainings, that we have to focus at which domain we really want to excel and keep upgrading, upskilling ourselves there. So the thing is that we have a lot of new new things that the CBSE is telling us, that start clubs, start skilling as early as grade 6 and things like that. Now, when we talk about this, do we do it as seriously as it is expected from us? I think we somehow not even give attention to proper this 18 hour duration that we are expected to in a year for a particular skilling thing. And we choose the safe ones. We choose the ones where the parent won't come to us and ask that why are you doing pottery and why are you not doing maybe data sciences or AI, or for that matter something which they understand better. Maybe we have not been able to share lots of success stories with them, that if they do pottery also, they'll be successful in life. Maybe if they do visual merchandising, they'll be doing well for themselves in life. Though at later stage children do explore, they don't listen to teachers or to parents or to anyone, and if they have real kind of willingness to pursue a particular course, they definitely are doing it. So I think when we are doing our career counseling workshops and sessions, and when we are even inviting universities for that matter through campus coach, we should also have a clear segment where we focus on skill oriented courses offered by universities and invite parents for those specific special sessions. It has to start as a discussion at home first, and when it will start as a discussion at home and come to school as a demand, then we will not have to fight with this whole idea, because here we are pushing it, they are not demanding it. Now if they
Yes.
start demanding and if we provide it, then things will get way more easier. And maybe what we can do is, like, it's just a thought, that in a city we decide that fine, certain schools will do certain things and certain others will do certain other things, and we exchange resources as to how we are doing it. So that will also help us in creating a pool of resources. One, two, focusing on maybe a few specific, very core skill related activities and subjects will also let us not, start a big range of subjects, skill subjects. Let's focus only on few that we feel that will have handy resources, maybe out of our parent pool, our alumni pool, and we don't have to struggle, because the major struggle that schools face is of trained teachers to do a particular skill subject. So first we have to actually understand that where we stand in terms of our resources. Once we are clear about it, I think we should big and bold go kind of talking about it out and open wherever we get an opportunity to interact with parents and create that mahal. And I'm sure this will work. At least I plan to do that, and I'm gradually going pushing it, nudging it in a way. And I hope we all will have to take our own steps, and it is going to be a successful and fruitful journey for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
Perfect. In
Thank you.
fact, with that, we come to the close of this discussion. But I think if we take a quick recap, the very fact that we ended up discussing more on the skill is about very, very simple theory to me is what catches your top of the mind attention, right? So for us, it's not about what the government is doing with the budget, how much is getting allocated. It's not really those problems. The problems are really, which is pinching the shoe at a daily basis. We have been experimenting with skills in our schools, but I believe no one has a very concrete answer to it, which is why it's a pain point. And therefore it becomes the major discourse of your discussion, I would say, right? So that's the way it happens. But I personally believe we have a long way to go as a nation in terms of these journeys which we are taking up. AI is one such journey which we will take up as an educator. Skill is something which we are already doing for that matter. But if you look at the one of the things which I think was a little sort of a dichotomy in the budget is that government ended up opening up more medical colleges in order to accommodate, I think, the number of seats or the kind of conundrum which we have with our medical aspirants really going out and demanding for those kind of things. I hope the trend changes. Soon we have more to do with skill universities, and similarly a liberal art university or a jobs for liberal can be opened up, or government apportions more seat for that. But I think that's a complete societal change which will take some time in our nation, at least, because we are still fixated about engineering and sciences. There's no two ways about it. A long way to go, but I think we have all made that start through NEP and other initiatives. And I think we will keep crossing those bridges as we go along. So thank you very much, everyone. I think we tried doing justice with what we intended to, but that's the way it is, because it was our first shot at discussing something as important as a budget. I believe we did achieve some bit of information passing to you all, right? So people who have attended it, they may ask me, what is this discussion all about? This wasn't about school budgeting. No, definitely it wasn't about school budgeting. This was the budget of our nation. So I got a couple of messages on my personal window stating that if we can do a session on how school budget can be managed, for that matter, we will be in a better. That is for some another day. This was for Indian budget of 2025, everybody. I hope you had a good time discussing this with us. Thank you to both my expert, Dr. Chandra and Dr. Neha. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Until we meet
inviting
next,
us.
have a great time. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very
Thank you
much.
everyone for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you. Bye.